Hi, Steve. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. So I ran into Steve's art through his Instagram page, and honestly, my mind was blown away by his creativity, his innovation, and how he promotes his art. And with over 200,000 followers on Instagram, I'm definitely not the only fan of his work. Do yourself a favor and follow him. And before we begin, Steve, what is your Instagram handle, or where can people see your work?
I'm at Steve Casino on Instagram. Luckily, I started early, so I got my own name. And I'm also stevecasino.com, but I don't really keep that up to date.
I promise you, me describing Steve's work will never do it justice actually seeing it. So please head over there to his Instagram page. So my first question, you paint video game characters, celebrities, musicians, monsters, movie characters, and you infuse them on everyday objects like a magic 8-ball, deodorant sticks, Tic Tacs, yes, the breath fresheners, Coke cans, and more. How do you typically describe your art to people?
I would say that I take humble objects like peanuts and old containers and I turn them into art objects. So like discarded things nobody wants. And it's just something. It started with peanuts and it just kind of infected other vessels, so to speak.
That makes sense. And I'm really curious because when I was growing up, I was inspired by art that was around my childhood, like Dungeons and Dragons, choose your own adventure books, comics. What inspired you growing up and how did you continue to do art as you were growing up?
Let's see. I mean, like probably like half the nation, I was inspired by comic strips like Charles Schultz, Peanuts. That was probably the first thing I ever drew because it was so simple. And even before I could read, I would look at those over and over again. I was attracted to like drawing Charlie Brown's head and just simple shapes like that. And I still love those comic strips, but for a whole different reason, because they kind of speak to adults. And then, I got into comic books. I remember my first grade, my mother gave me a 3-pack of Whitman comics, and it was like Little Lulu and Bugs Bunny and stuff. And I just, those are the only 3 comics I had for a long time. I didn't realize you could just go buy more. So I just read them over and over again. And I would, it like amazed me like how artists could do those like thick to thin lines with inking. It's just like, I tried to emulate that. And then kind of got into horror, probably at a young age. Planet of the Apes, I was really into that. I would draw apes all the time. Then Star Wars happened, and I could draw a perfect Darth Vader after a while. The little details in his breathing mask. So it's just mostly sci-fi and horror, and I was a TV junkie, and I liked Hanna-Barbera, and so just a whole mixed bag of things. And and then I met a friend in high school who was like one of the most amazing artists who I've ever met in my life, and so I thought I was kind of good, and he was just amazing. So he kind of took me under his wing and taught me a few things.
All those things resonate with me because I remember all those. We're probably close in age. But when you were in art classes, did you develop your skills in academic arts or did you do that on your own time?
I would do both. We had like homework drawings that we had to do, and I would just, I would copy Frazetta, art, not copy it, but like Frazetta inspired fantasy art. I was into that for a while. And, I didn't, like the skills I have now are probably, I didn't really progress beyond high school as far as learning. My art teacher in high school was an amazing watercolorist. So all the painting that I know how to do now, it's basically the watercolors that he taught me how to do all those years ago. And sculpting, I just kind of have been sculpting the same type of things since I was a child, like monsters.
And, when you studied art and did art in high school, did that progress to anything after high school, or is that where your art studies ended?
No. So I kind of coasted in high school because I was I realized, I'll back up a little bit. My dad's brother was an artist for Westinghouse. It was a company in Pittsburgh. And he had gone to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And so he was a presence in my life as a child. And I knew that he was an artist and he made a living from it. So I kind of knew like that's what I wanted to do because I just saw what he could do and I'm like, hey, I want to do that. And it's like, I didn't really have any skills. It's like somehow I'm going to achieve that. So I just kind of, really shaped my life to become an artist, even though I didn't really realistically know how I was going to make a living from it. So when I was in high school, I got accepted to the Rochester Institute of Technology. And I was I wouldn't say I was a poor student in high school. I was a great art student and I was good at like certain subjects like English, but my GPA wasn't good. Luckily, I had a pretty good SAT score. So I got into this RIT and I didn't really know it, but they just accepted anybody because they had a 50% dropout rate. But I got in there. And, I wouldn't say I excelled, but I learned a lot. I learned more with like electives in there than I did my major, which was industrial design. It's like product design where you like design a stapler and things like that.
You said your uncle was a working artist, so your parents didn't dissuade you to go be an artist. They knew that you could possibly make a career, leveraging your talent and your creativity doing art.
Yeah, I don't think they were thrilled about it because he actually wasn't thrilled about it. In a midlife change, he became a car dealer because he enjoyed cars way more than art. But I got to hand it to them. They stuck by me in my decision to go into it. But I kind of went into college under the guise of I was going to do computers, like something to do with computers, like computer design, because that was like new on the horizon. Kind of BS my way in there through my parents.
And when you graduated college, did you go immediately into an art career, or did that look like something different?
No. So, the cool thing about industrial design is that you learn a lot of different things. You learn model making, you learn rendering, you learn drafting, and you're pretty well rounded by the time you get out of there. It's not like the world's beating down your door to hire you, but you do have a lot of skills. So right out of college, I moved to New York City, like on a whim, pretty much. I'd been there once and I knew it was kind of the place to be. And so I moved to New York, and my first day on my first interview, I got a job, and it just so happened that they needed a warm body. Like they didn't really care. They didn't ask for my portfolio. They didn't ask for my degree or diploma or anything. And that was at a place that made props for TV commercials back before CGI. So from the first day there, I was working on a giant Schick razor
Wow.
model that they used. They would zoom in with the camera on the blades and stuff, but the razor itself is actually like a foot wide.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're kind of painting the picture for me because I was going to ask you, most artists paint in canvas. You have an array of skills from sculpting, painting on a 3D object. I was going to ask where all that skills comes from. Is that from just your background in industrial art degree, or is that from all the other jobs you had after graduating college?
Yeah, it's just kind of like an accumulation of all of them. And I'm going to back up a little. Concurrently, before I did that, my last semester in college, I was in class and someone came up to me and they said, "Hey, there's this guy and he's talking to the illustration class and you should really meet him. He's really cool. He's an amazing artist. You're going to like his stuff." So I went down there and it turned out it was this caricature artist named Philip Burke. He's really well known because in the 90s, he did like the opening page of Rolling Stone magazine. He did these amazing like caricatures, these paintings of like, Bruce Springsteen, Prince, and they're just like really wild, loose, amazing caricatures. And he's actually still doing it. And he's probably one of the most renowned caricature artists like in history at this point. And he was there, and the guy was kind enough to like, talk to me. And he's like, and I didn't have any artwork with me. So he came to my actual dorm room or wherever I was living at an apartment and looked at my artwork, and he ripped it to shreds. He's just like this. He goes, I think you've learned enough from Mad Magazine. You don't need to do it this way, because I'd done caricatures and stuff. And I thought he was going to like praise me or whatever. And he just ripped it to shreds, but he actually opened my eyes to the world of illustration and fine art and things like that. I kept in contact with him, and he showed me all these cartoonists, like underground cartoonists, like Matt Groening, who was like relatively unknown then, the Simpsons guy. And yeah, it just, so the last like 8 weeks of college, I just immersed myself in this new culture. And that really made, and he also said, you got to go to New York. He's like, there's nothing for you here. If you want to really get into the field and do stuff, just go to New York. Things are happening there. So that's what kind of made my mind to go to New York. And it turned out a friend of mine had a place I could crash for the first month. So that's why I went there.
You said something that was really interesting. So This guy who is an artist who has success looks at your work and shreds it to pieces. How did you find that critique and take that and get better from it? Like, how did you not have that crush you?
Okay. So here's what it was. It was like, my art was like super contrived. It was like, I would look at Jack Davis, from Mad and things like that. And that's how I thought that, a slick professional artist's work should look. But at the same time, I had this wild style that just came naturally out of me. And I'd gotten drunk one night in college, and I drew all over my wall in the apartment these giant caricatures with magic marker, just crazy stuff, like blue punk rock guys and monsters, and I was completely loose and free and all this. And he looked at my portfolio, and he looked at the stuff on the wall. He goes, and he said, this stuff is a million times better than your portfolio. He's like, because that's you. He's like, that's coming out of you. You have to do that work. Don't do this work. Do that work. He's like, people are going to hire you for your honesty, not your give you jobs for your honesty, not for trying to do this slick artwork. So that really hit home.
That made sense to you. So after that, did your style completely change?
Yeah, I would say, I completely loosened up. And then it actually made me want to be an illustrator too, like, because or a cartoonist or something like that. So when I went to New York, and I had to get a job and make money. So I worked at that prop house, but I also pursued an illustration career. So I was, going to magazines and dropping, and I'd totally redone my portfolio at that point. And I went to magazines, and back then it was like a whole different system than it is now, where you had to, like every Wednesday, the Village Voice, you dropped your portfolio off, and maybe they'd look at it, maybe they wouldn't. But, that's how you got work back then, or got discovered. And I got work right away doing that, which was pretty cool, because I also didn't know that they were always looking for fresh talent to publish, even though it wasn't anything you could live on. You could get your stuff in a magazine rather quickly.
I'm curious about illustrators, and as a working professional, this is my perception of them. Places hire illustrators based on their particular style. And if that style doesn't fit the job description on whatever product they're pitching or idea, they'll have to go with a different artist. Now, were you the type of artist that you were flexible enough and adaptable enough to change your art based on the project, or did you always keep your style and you use that style throughout?
Well, it's funny because I would actually, I'm like a chameleon. So I had a certain style that I knew that, it was fresh looking. I did mostly caricatures, because I've always loved caricatures. And so I did that, but I also did a more commercial style. And this is all to get money, because it was like, I was a 22-year-old guy in New York. It was super expensive. I was alone. I had to pay rent. I had to get an apartment. I didn't make that much money at my day job. So I work at night and do these illustration jobs. And that was like, a nice cash flow. So I did all kinds of different things.
For people who don't know, and if you're looking into his career, all of a sudden, at least when I'm looking at it, you have a bunch of TV appearance. You were in Good Morning America, Ripley's Believe It or Not. How did that all happen? Like, I mean, you've reached heights that artists would only dream of. Like, is that what the innovation of technology that came in that changed all that, or how did that even happen?
Oh, I mean, it's a long story. It's been a long, long road, and I've done many things. So all that stuff is rather recent, probably in the last 7 or 8 years. Before that, basically once the internet happened and Instagram, social media, you're suddenly in control of your own fate. Whereas before you had to depend on an art director and all these people saying, you're not right for us, and you heard that. But once I was able to take control and expose myself to people and get in places I wanted to, then my art took off. I believed in myself long enough, even though I had years of, I wouldn't say failure, but it was just, really hard to compete. And there's 10 million people trying to get in magazines and books and things like that. And also I came up with a very fresh approach to art with like the peanut art. I kind of had a gimmick.
Yeah, let's talk about that peanut art and and your everything else that you, and hopefully people at this point are looking at your work. When did that transition to that? Were you doing that way before social media? Were you doing stuff like all that?
No.
That's new?
No. Yeah, that's totally new. Like, okay, let's just say I was dormant for many years and I was like raising a family and stuff, but I was also a toy inventor, designer for all those years. So I kind of had my creative flow going anyway. But once my last job before this one, it was probably 15, 16 years ago, I worked with this guy named Jason Freeney, and he worked in the same room as me. I was a toy inventor, and he was just an amazing artist, like illustrator and stuff. And then, I left there, and then he left there, and we went out into the world, different directions. But he started doing artwork, and he started doing those dissected cartoon characters. He does like half My Little Pony and half her skeleton, stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds neat.
And yeah, and he's very famous. He's everywhere, and he's Gummy Fetus on Instagram.
I'm gonna check that out.
He started doing that, and I'm like, wow, it's like, he came up with something. And he rocketed to stardom. I mean, I'm telling you, like he posted it on social media and he started selling them on eBay, and it just went crazy. And he deserves it. He's amazing, But it just, I was at the point in my life. I'm like, I really need to do something. It's like I haven't done anything in a long time, and I always look at people doing well, and I'm like, shit, I could do that, But I didn't do it. So I'd come up with this like peanut thing maybe 10 years ago. And it was just, I would eat peanuts like all the time in the shell. And I noticed that they looked like people, because they look like a head and torso of people. So, and also, I drew caricatures and stuff. So I started drawing myself on peanuts and drawing my friends on peanuts with a Sharpie. And I'd find like my one friend had really bad posture and his hair, he had really high hair. And I found a peanut that actually looked exactly like him. So I drew him on it, and it just like cracked everyone up. So I was looking for a hobby, and I remembered that I had done that. So the first thing I thought I'd do is like, I really like the band, the Ramones. So I'm like, I should just make the Ramones out of peanuts. It just occurred to me one day. So I like ran to the craft store and I bought all this crap, and I really hadn't ever painted, like really. I'd done pen and ink and things like that. So I kind of had to teach myself that. And I did that, and I created the Ramones, and it didn't look so great. And they had like pipe cleaner legs. And then I did Superman, and then I did Aquaman, and I just got better, a little better each time. And I learned to paint a little more, and I learned to work this. And then by like the 10th, no, probably the 20th one that I did, I'm like, I didn't realize I could paint like microscopically. Like I was painting the eyes and the irises and stuff on these things. It's like, I never knew I had the skill. And at the time I was like 45 years old or 46 years old. And I just kept doing it. And then once I had compiled a whole bunch of them, I posted those on like Facebook, and it went viral. I posted them on there. It went viral, but at the same time, my friend's son said, "Hey, the YouTube's big. You should do a YouTube video of yourself making these." So I didn't really know what I was doing. So I did a YouTube video, and that got shared like hundreds of thousands of times. And I think it was also a little funny because it's like this crackpot guy makes art with peanuts. They didn't really, there wasn't like a bored panda at that point or anyone doing like weird, funny, there's like every day I think I see something where someone does cappuccino foam art or banana art or something, but that hadn't happened yet. So the peanut thing was rather early, and it took off. And then ever since then, I've just been capitalizing on a following. So, I still do peanut art, but then it also gave me room to do other art, other sculptures. And I never really did sculpting before either, but I started sculpting on the peanuts. And then I'm like, hey, I like sculpting. So then it branched off into a different direction. And then, and it's cool having a following, because then they accept pretty much like, I mean, I don't say they accept everything that I do, but you can get a good read early on whether something is, liked by people, and that you can, have an audience for it.
Now, people dream about having anything they do when they're putting it out there on social media go viral. We don't even know what I can't even imagine what that looks like. When that happened to you and you started putting out your peanut art and it went viral, like, what does that mean? Like, I mean, does it mean that it's just literally multiplying, it's being shared by everybody, and you're getting hit up on direct messages about what you're doing? Like, what does that look like?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that was like, I wasn't really prepared for that, but that was like, I'm trying to think. So it was that video, and that video got shared, and it got passed around. And I think a local TV station here. Oh no, right this minute. I think it's called Right This Minute. It's a syndicated show. They called me, and I didn't even know who they were, and I went on there, and it just like someone saw that, and then another person saw the next thing, and then it just like spreads exponentially, and then pretty soon, I'm just getting calls, and everyone wants to buy one, and it's like I didn't know how to handle it. It's like they seem to think that I had like 50 copies of everything that I made, and I was ready to sell them to them. And they also thought that they were really cheap because they're small, but they're not, because they take a long time.
So how does Good Morning America, that platform, even find you? I mean, are they combing through local stories that are so interesting that it deserves to be in a national level? Like, how did they get a hold of you?
I'm trying to think back now. Well, first the Today Show picked me up, and they just put me on their website, and I guess from there other people saw it, and it was a producer on the Good Morning America saw it, and they actually called me and they said, hey, we'd like you to send your artwork to us. And at that point, my artwork was the only artwork I had in the world, and there's like no way I was mailing my artwork, out. I said, listen, I have a couple days off. I'll just fly out there. And they're like, great, you could be on the show. So I went out there.
You had no fear being in front of the cameras?
Oh no, I was freaked out completely because I'm not a social person. No, I thought I was gonna puke. And it's like I'm in the studio, and there's like George Stephanopoulos and Robin and all those people, and I was just like, holy crap. And they're just like, and they just let me be in there. It's like nobody really asked. I mean, they let me in the front door, but it's like no one's like questioning who this guy is just standing there. It was kind of bizarre. I
what year was that? Was that like 5 years ago or so?
Yeah.
And I was going to say, does your art just explode from there? And people are just calling you off the hook, and they want to know how much they can buy one. And how does that look like after that appearance?
Yeah, what happens is like, then that begat another appearance and another and another. And it was cool, but I would say, I mean, it was fun. It's fun being on television, because like most artists, like you're saying, dream of something like that, but it doesn't really help like make you money or anything, because it's like, some people at home. Actually, I did pick up a few clients that are like steady customers from it, but at the same time, it's like kind of, I don't know. It's very nerve wracking, and I actually seem to do better if I just stay at home and put my stuff online. You know, yeah, it's weird, and it's funny. You know, people will write me all the time and say, "Hey, I saw you on this show" or whatever. But you know, it's almost like bragging rights or whatever. It really doesn't propel your career forward.
So for an artist, and this is my perception of it, there's two types of art. There's art that is commission, where you work for the client, essentially art directing you on what they want, and you build it to what they want. Or it's even better to actually do your own art with no negotiation. You do whatever you want, and then people want to buy that. To me, that's the highest level of like being an artist. Now, with over 200,000 followers, when you create a piece that I see here, and when that drops, what does that look like? I mean, do you have instantly people asking you how much it costs? Can I buy one of those? Like, is there a waiting list? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's funny because I do both commissions and what you're saying. I'll just do something and then I'll put it out. And so I've been doing that for a while, like those infestation pieces, like that Magic 8 Ball the other day. And I've been posting them, and every time I post one, it sells in like 10 minutes, and it's really fun. But commissions are also fun because it kind of steers me in a direction that I wouldn't normally go. You know, like somebody just hired me to do the Prisoner, Patrick McGoohan from this obscure '60s show called The Prisoner, and I've always wanted to see it. And this gave me a chance to watch it, and I got into it, and it was really fun working on that. So a lot of times I'll do things that I wouldn't normally do, and then that will open up another avenue when I do a commission. And then with the other things where I just do whatever I want and sell them, that's really cool too. But like I also have art shows. So I'm supposed to have a show next October. I was supposed to have one this October, and I kind of canceled because it's just, not a good time to have an art show during COVID. So I need art for that. So I'm going to have to stop selling things so quickly and kind of compile some art to show to, at a gallery.
Yeah, I was going to just follow up on that. Like when you create all these pieces, how much of this do you still own? I mean, is everything like what you put out, it's instantly bought, or do you keep some personally for yourself?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to start keeping some for myself at this point. But, some stuff I keep. There are like pieces like I did the Ramones, and the Ramones are one of my favorite bands. And this isn't the initial Ramones that I said that I was the first piece I did. I redid them when my skills got better. So they, and the Ramones actually had a 50th anniversary, gallery show at the Grammy Museum in LA. And they asked me to put that artwork in there. And that was great because I got to go to the opening and see the stuff. So I kept that. That's like near and dear to me. And a couple other things that I've done, like I did the cast of Game of Thrones for MTV, and I kept that. And, odds and ends. I basically, if anyone, like say a school asked me to come visit or something, I have enough stuff that I could just bring with me and, instantly have stuff to show them. But I don't have a lot.
I think other artists would like to know this. Like your revenue stream coming in comes from different sources. It's your art that people direct message you to buy. You also do art fairs, and you also. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I did like limited edition figures. I did this gallery in New York called Bottleneck Gallery. I worked with them and I came up with a limited edition axe figure. One of the early things that I did with infestations was I took deodorant and I cut it into it and I made a character like living inside a thing of deodorant. And the actual deodorant stick is his brain. And,
is this the Brute? Is it the Brute deodorant?
Well,
I'm looking at that one.
No, that was the Frankenstein one, but I've done axe and he's holding an axe and it's, So
yeah, I've seen those. Those are so cool.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I did a limited edition, and they made a couple thousand of them. So that's a revenue stream. And just trying to think. I don't know.
No,
My head spins because I just do all kinds of different stuff, you know.
I'm looking at your Magic 8 Ball for you listeners. It's like a Magic 8 Ball that's cracked in half, and this monster has popped out of it, and it's holding the actual fortune right in its tentacles. How long does one of these take to make?
I think that one took about 10 hours from start to finish. I don't know. It's hard to tell because I multitask. So I watch a lot of, I do a lot of binge watching of shows. So I probably work slower than I could, but I get to enjoy, I just watched Utopia, the whole series over the weekend while I worked on things. So I probably could work twice as fast if I didn't watch television while I worked.
What is the most enjoyable to do? These Tic Tacs with the background of the scene? Is it the peanuts? Is it these things that are like everyday objects that you infuse? Like, are they all enjoyable? They all look fun. I mean,
they're all fun. It's funny because I get sick. Like I just did like 3 cartridges, Nintendo cartridges, and I'm kind of bored with those. I kind of want to do something else. So then the good thing is then I could just go and just do peanuts. So basically I have a list of commissions. They come in at different times and everyone's on a waiting list. And there might be a Tic Tac, there might be a peanut, whatever. But, with peanuts, I could do 4 at once. And, with the cartridges, I could prep 4 and get them ready, so it's kind of a mass production sort of thing. And also I do another revenue stream that I forgot is I do limited edition toys. So I do these wooden toys based on kind of old Fisher-Price toys, the old wooden animated toys, but I do them with like twisted subject matter, like The Shining or Psycho.
Oh, those are killer, man. Those are really, really nice. And how do people get a hold of and want to buy one of these pieces? Is it like an Etsy? Is it like direct contact to you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. So it's just, I didn't have time. Like I didn't really have time to maintain a store so well or to go on Etsy or anything. And I think I love Etsy, but I think if you're an artist, it sort of devalues your work a little bit because people expect Etsy prices and, I don't know. It just, everybody's doing it. So it's almost, it almost rewards you to be harder to get, harder to contact. Because I can't really, I can't keep up with it because I'm always working. So someone will basically, I ask for a deposit and I say, I put them on a list and I'm like, it's going to take this many months. So, it's like 6 months now till anyone's going to get anything if they ordered it today. And that gives me breathing room and gives me a little time to, come up with like Magic 8 Ball type art and things like that. But I do those wooden toys. I figured out a way because so many people wanted them and they're very laborious and time consuming. I figured out a way to make like half scale versions of them where I get the wood laser cut and it comes to me in pieces. And then I create prints and then I apply prints. So I can do them in a fraction of the time and charge a fraction of the price. So it gives people a chance to own that without, paying a lot.
Gotcha. And you innovate so much in your work. My question is, are you constantly thinking about how to create art on a different surface, a new object? Is that something you take time to do, or that just organically happens when it pops in your brain? Or do you actually take time to say, well, how am I going to push my art to a different level?
Yeah, I do that. I go on the notes in my phone and just whenever I have a thought, I write it down. And then when I'm sitting around, waiting for paint to dry on something out, I might flip through my phone and, look at my notes and go, oh yeah, I actually saw something today that I forgot that I came up with that I want to explore. And it was like from a week ago.
We'll look forward to that. So let me throw in a couple more questions here. We're near the end here. You have experienced so much success. I'm curious, how does Steve Casino actually define success?
It's great because I've also made a lot of friends, and that's the cool part. So even though I don't, I kind of live in a place where in this town, there's a lot of families and my kids don't go to school here. And, but I've made hundreds of friends, through social media and artists and and I'm friends with like artists that I've never dreamed that I'd be friends with. And I just think that's really cool. So I feel successful in that way. And like people know my name and I know their name, and it's fun. I'm kind of at the point that I always wanted to be. But it took me a lot longer to get here than I ever thought I would,
That makes a lot of sense. And do you have any advice for any young aspiring artist that looks at your work and says, I want to follow his footsteps?
Yeah, it's just, now it's so easy with social media to, I see a lot of people on there, and I don't want to put anyone down, but it's like they shouldn't put their artwork up there yet, because they're not ready, and they want people to judge them, and they want followers. They want to be a star artist on the internet, and it's like just work your butt off. I worked my butt off to get where I am. I sacrificed sleep and I hundreds of thousands of hours to get here. So it wasn't, even though I've not been doing this that long of a time, there's so much work put in beforehand to get here. So it's just, people have to learn how to draw. That's one thing. You can't fake it your whole life. You have to actually like sit down and be able to draw like a square in perspective, things like that. Like just your basic building blocks of art, you have to learn.
I know we glossed through this hour pretty quick, and we sped up your career, and it almost seems from afar it was overnight success, but it took like many years to get that overnight success and a lot of mastery of your craft. So that makes a lot of sense. Lastly, what are your future plans? Anything you want to promote here, or?
I'm trying to think. Well, I have a show next October, and let's see. I don't know. It's just, I don't really have anything to promote right now.
Gotcha. Can you share again your website and your Instagram handle?
At Steve Casino, and Casino is exactly how it sounds, and then stevecasino.com. And I'm also on Facebook and all those other things, but they don't really matter.
Gotcha. And I know your Instagram is your big page, and I follow you there, and obviously everybody's following you. And for the listeners, definitely you should stop by, get amazed by his work, and follow him. Well, I want to thank you, Steve, for sharing your story. I want to
you're welcome.
Inspiring a lot of artists, future generation of artists, inspiring myself as well. I promise you that a lot of people will be watching for sure. And thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And until next time, take care and bye.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye.